Hi there, this is Mr. Hampson and welcome to the Year 4 Spring Term Overview. So each term we take on a key question that overarches every aspect of the curriculum that we're covering in our foundation subjects. And this term we decided to look at how do our connections impact on our world. So we started this by considering what those connections actually are. And we covered areas such as local transport, national transport, international transport. We've looked at social media and the internet. We've looked at world trade and local trade. We've looked at fair trade. We've also covered things like religion and where the foods that are in our supermarkets actually come from, and how other countries and poorer economies are benefiting from things such as fair trade. So during the project, we went out into Hyson Green at the very beginning so we could get an idea of the kind of transport and means of getting around locally. And then we built that up to looking at world trade and the large freighters and planes that carry produce around the world, and how that builds positive relationships with other countries and allows certain countries to survive. We've also looked at tourism and the effects and benefits of learning about other cultures and visiting new places. And we've also looked at fair trade, and we looked at the path a banana takes from Ghana to the UK, and we looked at how much each person in that chain receives from you buying that banana, to try and explain what fair trade is and why it is really important. We also identified that a lot of these areas covered involved pollution. So at the end of our project, the children were tasked with coming up with suitable ideas that we can reduce both air pollution and plastic pollution around the world. And the children gave some excellent ideas and insight based on what they've been looking at throughout the term. We also then went on to think about how the world's connected physically. So we also looked at the structure of the Earth, from the inner and outer core to the mantle and crust and tectonic plates. And we also did a case study on a volcano and the effects that had on world trade and tourism when it erupted in 2010. We also been looking at Commando Joe. Again, that's something we do every term, and we take on a different key character, either from current times or recent history. And recently we've been looking at Kira Salat, a very brave and adventurous reporter, and we looked at her journeys into the dangerous countries she's been, and the work she's done to the conservation work she's done to protect animals that are on the brink of extinction. The Commando Joe exercises mostly focus on building resilience and collaboration, imagination and communication. So there's a lot of group work, a lot of trust, a lot of communicating as a team and deciding roles, and we always have a really great time with it. You can see in some of the images that there are often courses that children had to either navigate as carefully as possible, or with the help of a teammate communicating and guiding them through. And this obviously helps build on all those key focuses that we have at Scott Home. In our English work units this term, we've looked at a historical recount. So we took the learning that had taken place in the autumn term on the Vikings and their invasion in Lindisfarne, and we used that to write a historical recount text based on that initial visit by the Vikings to Lindisfarne. We've also done a complex narrative extract based on the story Nim's Island, a really tricky piece to write as it jumps from first person to third person to internal dialect, and it was a really tricky one to write, but the children came up with some great ideas for it. And finally, we've done an explanation text, so a combination of both fiction and non-fiction. In maths this term, we've had a really big push on times tables. The Year 4s do sit a times tables test next term, and so we are pushing to get as many of them through that as we can. And obviously understanding their times tables is such a core pillar in them understanding the rest of the numeracy work that we do. So we've had a big focus on times tables, multiplication and division, making sure that they have written methods and mental methods for answering questions. And we've also looked at fractions and decimals, another really tricky one, but they have demonstrated a really good understanding of the links between the two. Last of all, in science, we had biology this term, and so we've been looking a lot at plants and pollination. We've also looked at the different ways animals are classified and how living things have adapted to their habitat. So that includes like how the polar bear survives and how the snow leopard or a giraffe has been adapted over time to survive in its habitat. So what comes next? In the summer term, our overarching question relates to dreams, not just the dreams we have when we go to sleep, but also our dreams and hopes for the future and why it's important to have them. So that's the main question the children will be reflecting on. Some of the key subject areas we'll be looking at surrealist art, excuse me, and we'll also be looking at music. Throughout the term, we're hoping that the children will be able to create a number of art pieces and hopefully some form of music by the end of the term for us to share. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed our quick summary of the Year 4 spring term, and I shall see you again in the summer.